This could change the construction industry forever. I'm going to go through the different eras that construction has gone through that I learned from the book Built to Fail, which is absolutely fantastic, and then talk about where we can head in order to change construction forever. So do you want to know what era we are in right now in construction and how we got to where we are? And would you also like to know the 3 things that you shouldn't do, the 3 things that you can do, and 3 amazing books that you can reference? If you're ready for all that cool content, then stay with us. We're going to do this right now. So before we get going, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who likes, who comments, who subscribes to these videos. It really helps the YouTube algorithm to get this information out. As you already know, we passed 15,000 subscribers and we are climbing, and the numbers get better and better each day because of you. Thank you so much. What you're doing, the effort that you put into it really, really matters. So I'm excited to get into this content. We're going to talk first about Era 1. Era 1 is described in the book, and this is my summary, by the way, absolutely fantastic book, but Era 1 in construction was the duration in construction where we focused on pushing people. Okay, this is where we would really focus on how fast a worker could install a certain amount of product in an hour. This gave birth to segregated trades. It gave birth to time studies about people. I personally like time studies that are analyzing the process. So process time studies are good, but these were people time studies. And then also in this era came about this concept of the piece worker. The other thing is there's the misconception, which is completely false, which is that the more people that you put on a task, the shorter your overall duration. And that is actually not true. That is completely false. Putting more people towards a task does not mean it gets done faster. This is like the lie of the century. And so I call this, well, the book calls it this, but I call this the era of Taylorism, where we start to push people. This is very, very destructive because when you start to have a project go behind or you want a better end milestone, typically because people have been indoctrinated in this way, they'll start to push people, increase work in process, and it really hurts the job and extends your overall total project duration. So let's talk about era number 2. We learned this in the book. This is the era of administration. This is where we are focused more on having managers upon managers upon managers upon managers upon managers supervising the work. You have more people essentially watching the work happen than actually doing the work, and you're focused on administration here. And the technology, the industry, and the money is being spent to optimize this. So it's actually not focused on getting work done. It's focused on making the lives of these folks easier and strengthening their position, and now the system is protecting the system. So you can see what's happening here. In classical management, which is not lean, you have the leaders, if you could call them that are making the decisions and have the money, okay, disconnected from the actual work and the workers. That is a non-lean environment, okay? A lean environment is where the work and the workers are, the leaders being close and actually spending money and allocating resources to provide them what they need. So lean, not lean. Lean, not lean. And what you can see here is we have a fundamental disrespect for people in this Taylorism phase. And now with the strengthening of admin, we are now strengthening and optimizing this and ignoring and getting more farther apart from the work actually being done. So we have switched from lean work to what's called classical management. So these are the 2 eras that have gotten us where we are today. It's the reason why there's so much disrespect for people, why really very few people want to come into our industry, and why we're so disconnected, and why we have so many worthless project management systems and positions that are not needed, that are not focused on the right things. In era 3, where we need to go, this will change construction forever, is where we focus on production systems. And this is pretty clearly outlined in the book, the era of production. And you could also say profit, because you're only going to get profit when you actually achieve production. And so typically in our industry, we're focused on pretty worthless things. We're focused right now on paperwork, on wasted efforts, on the CYA contracts and RFIs and submittals and all of the documentation that we have to go through, and always going out to get 3 quotes from vendors, all of the management upon management upon management upon management. We're also focused too much on CPM schedules, which is a completely worthless scheduling system that we should never again use. All it is a wish list. It's a predictive schedule that shows what the demand is, meaning like what the client wants, completely separate from what is actually able to happen from a production standpoint, from a supply standpoint. And so what you end up doing when you focus on CPM or critical path is you bunch up work, you increase your work in process, you start to rush and push and panic people, you get people out of flow, and it really disconnects the demand and the supply sides to where now you start to have contention, and it really spirals the project into a bad situation. And so that's typically what we focus on today, and it all amounts to that other thing that I was talking about in Era 1, which is the disrespect and pushing of workers. So what we should start doing is focusing on Era 3 concepts, which I'm going to talk to you about now. And so I'm going to give you 3 steps that you can follow to start to head into Era 3, and I hope you enjoy each one. Number 1, look for your bottleneck. We've already talked about in other videos how your project, if you focus it in a time by location format, and you have trade number 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you have zone number 1, 2, and 3, you can see that cascade throughout that network. This is a production system, okay? This is how you can know the relative speed of all of your trades. And this is what I want to explain. If you remember in the other videos, this creates this parallelogram. And when you have a parallelogram, that's the phase of your project in a time by location format. So when you have a wagon here, that wagon has a supply chain that feeds it. So you'll have information, you'll have materials, you'll have labor, you'll have equipment, you'll have everything that you need from a resource standpoint that targets that date and the rhythm of any successor activities in different zones, okay? So that's really important. So from a production system standpoint, you have to align your supply chain with the actual work happening. So this is the work. What most people do wrong is they think that the work just happens in one area. In construction, that's almost never what happens. Even if it's only a part of your project, you'll have multiple areas, so you have to understand what that rhythm or that cascade is. Now, in the TAC production system, which is a production system as a part of Era 3, you are able to absolutely find your bottlenecks. So step number 1, like I mentioned, is find your bottleneck. Now, there are a number of bottlenecks inside of a phase, meaning you could have a bottleneck in this process here. You could have a bottleneck where you have a trade that's not going fast enough. Let me explain that. Let's say that you had a trade duration and then the second one took too long and then this one was short. Well, if you start to cascade that down, then you start to see the problem here, right? Okay, let me actually do that one more time just so you get the full effect. You can see that your bottleneck from a trade standpoint is this second trade. It's not going as fast as the other trades. And so you can immediately see your bottlenecks when it comes to trades in that format. And if you are looking at it and you see, hey, every trade in zone number 2 is taking a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer, then you know you have a bottleneck in that zone and that the zone is too dense or too complex or configured wrong. And so you mainly will have bottlenecks in those different areas. Also, you might have a risk inside the phase which should be covered in your buffers that gets you to your milestone, right? And then another bottleneck is the number of zones. So we've talked about this in the past. What this means is, like, let's say for instance you had 5 zones. If you actually cut each zone in half and ended up with twice as many zones for the same area, this end date, this would incline without hurting trade partners and bring your project forward. And so what I want to say, in a production system, instead of just some random CPM schedule that's 75 pages worth of words and no real clear logic from any production standpoint, instead of doing this, you'll put it in a time by location format and you'll start to see, hey, for my aligned supply chain, do I have any bottlenecks? Do I have any bottlenecks inside the phase from a risk standpoint? Do I have any bottlenecks for zones? Do I have any bottlenecks for trades? And that is one way that you can start to make sure that your production system is actually effective. 2, one of the things that you can start doing right away is you can level work. We'll talk about this in other videos, but the bottom line is, the concept here is, as work and process increases, or as utilization increases over the capacity of the workforce, and you bunch up work like in the critical path method, where you have stacked trades that are all being scrunched together with the forward and backward paths, your overall total project duration will extend. And so what you want is that beautiful, nice flow. And if I take this blue marker and actually symbolize it, let's say I had a histogram over here, your workers will come on site and work in a leveled manner and go away once they're done. Leveling the work and process in appropriate levels according to capacity is key. And then number 3, aligning your production systems. What I want to say here is that if you have the production system base for the actual work itself, again, you're going to align the supply chain production system, but you're also going to align the design production system. So I'll do, design, make, right, deliver, and then build, and then finish as you go. Aligning the pace of everything together will really get your project flowing in a nice way and give you the earliest possible finish time. So you're probably like, Jason, why did you cover this? Knowing that number 1 is bottlenecks, number 2 is leveling, and number 3 is network all of the production systems together. The reason that I brought these together is because Era 1 of disrespecting and pushing people, that is fixed over here by identifying your bottlenecks and not just pushing and rushing workers, and leveling work to where you give workers an even pace. And number 2, instead of doing a lot of paperwork, we are actually focused on the design, the making of, the delivery, and the building and the finishing of the product, instead of focusing on worthless project management systems. So this is a start, this is not everything all inclusive, to heading into Era 3, where we're focused more on production instead of administration and worthless systems that get us nowhere. So don't focus on paperwork and administration. Don't worry about critical paths and worthless schedules that are what the owner wants. And don't rush and push and panic people. Always in your production system, create a system where you can identify your bottlenecks, level the work, and network all of the production systems together. And the 3 books that I want to leave you with, as promised, that will also enhance your ability to create production systems. The first one is called How Big Things Get Done, and it's going to talk about how to plan your project and specifically plan it to where you create a production system. Number 2, the Table Group has some great books: The Motive, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Death by Meeting, and The Advantage. And this is going to talk to you about how to build your team in construction to properly manage that project. And then number 3, the book Built to Fail, which I've already mentioned here, which is going to talk to you about how to create a production system. So even though these are interlinked, if you know what production system that you want to create, that should be done back here in the planning, okay? And it should be done with the right team. Typically, we do team first, then plan, then the production system, but this is predicated on the flow of you possibly being in pre-con and then finally assembling your team. Either way, you've got 3 references. You've got How Big Things Get Done, the Patrick Lencioni books from the Table Group, and Built to Fail, that will help you to head us into Era 3 of construction, where instead of pushing people and focusing on administration, we focus on production, which will bring us profits and change the industry forever. And in the description below, I'm going to give you links to these books so that you have them, you can order them, you can listen to them, and you can really affect change in your sphere of influence. I hope you love this video. On we go.